The prophet of our digital dystopia, how Aldous Huxley foresaw our modern predicament in an era where we carry infinite distractions in our pockets and seek chemical solutions for every discomfort. One visionary writer's warnings echo with chilling relevance. Aldous Huxley, writing nearly a century ago, painted a picture of humanity's future that feels less like fiction and more like a documentary of our present moment. While George Orwell imagined a world crushed under the boot of authoritarian surveillance, Huxley envisioned something far more insidious, a society that would willingly surrender its soul for the promise of perpetual pleasure. As media theorist Neil Postman astutely observed, these two literary giants feared opposite ends of the same spectrum. Orwell worried about information being withheld from us, while Huxley feared we would drown in an ocean of irrelevant data. Orwell saw truth being hidden. Huxley saw it being buried under an avalanche of meaningless noise. The contrast runs deeper still. Where Orwell anticipated we would become prisoners, Huxley predicted we would become willing participants in our own diminishment, too entertained, too comfortable, too chemically enhanced to notice what we had lost. The Making of a Prophet, born into intellectual aristocracy in 1894, Huxley seemed destined for scientific greatness. His grandfather, Thomas Henry Huxley, had worked alongside Charles Darwin and coined the term agnostic, a legacy that would profoundly shape young Aldous's understanding of both scientific progress and its philosophical implications. Fate, however, had different plans. A devastating eye infection in his teens left Huxley nearly blind for 3 years, crushing his dreams of becoming a physician. Yet this apparent tragedy became humanity's gain. Unable to pursue medicine, he turned to literature at Balliol College, Oxford, where he began crafting the literary voice that would one day warn the world about its own trajectory. In a twist that seems almost too perfect to be true, one of Huxley's students, during his brief teaching career at Eton College, was a young George Orwell, two future prophets of dystopia, their paths crossing in a classroom before either had glimpsed the dark futures they would illuminate. But it was Huxley's experience working at a chemical plant that provided the final piece of his prophetic puzzle. There, among the perfectly ordered machinery and systematized production, he witnessed what he called an ordered universe in a world of planless incoherence. The factory became his crystal ball, a microcosm of the society taking shape around him, where human beings were increasingly viewed as components in a vast machine, their individuality sacrificed for efficiency and output. Brave New World, A Mirror to Our Souls, published in 1930. 2. Brave New World initially began as satire, Huxley's response to the utopian novels of his era that he found nauseously optimistic. Yet what emerged was something far more profound, a philosophical examination of what it truly means to be human. In Huxley's imagined world state, suffering has been eliminated, along with everything that makes life meaningful. Citizens are manufactured in laboratories, sorted into predetermined castes, and conditioned to find contentment in their assigned roles. When happiness falters, the drug Soma provides instant chemical bliss. Conflict, struggle, and deep emotion are relics of a primitive past. The society functions flawlessly. Everyone is happy, everyone has their place, everyone gets what they want, because they've been programmed to want only what they can have. Yet when John the Savage, raised outside this perfect system, encounters this world, he recoils in horror. Having learned about life through Shakespeare and raw human experience, he recognizes what others cannot see, that in eliminating suffering, they have eliminated meaning itself. The world's stable now, explains Mustafa Mond, one of the world controllers. People are happy, they get what they want, and they never want what they can't get. And if anything should go wrong, there's Soma, but John refuses this bargain. In one of literature's most powerful declarations of human dignity, he cries out, "I don't want comfort, I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin." The prophecy accelerates. Initially, Huxley viewed his dystopia as a distant possibility, perhaps centuries away. But as the decades passed, and he witnessed the rapid advancement of psychology and technology, his timeline contracted dramatically. By 1950-8, he wrote with growing alarm, The prophecies made in 1930-1 are coming true much sooner than I thought they would. The nightmare of total organization has emerged from the safe, remote future and is now awaiting us just around the next corner. What had changed his mind? The emerging science of behavioral conditioning, particularly the work of B.F. Skinner and Ivan Pavlov, demonstrated how easily human behavior could be modified through rewards and punishments. Unlike Orwell's crude instruments of force, these represented weapons of influence that their targets would welcome, even crave. Huxley saw the writing on the wall. There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude, and producing dictatorship without tears, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it. The digital deluge. Fast forward to our current moment, and Huxley's vision feels less like prophecy and more like documentation. We live in an age where pharmaceutical solutions exist for every form of discomfort, where infinite entertainment streams directly into our hands, where the line between information and noise has virtually disappeared. Our devices offer constant escape from the complexity of existence. Social media provides carefully calibrated doses of validation. Streaming services ensure we never experience a moment of boredom. Dating apps reduce love to a swipe. News feeds fragment our attention into bite-sized pieces that resist deeper contemplation. We have become, in many ways, the rats in Skinner's box, constantly pressing levers for the next hit of dopamine, the next notification, the next distraction from the fundamental questions of existence. The flood of information that Huxley feared has indeed arrived, washing away the structures that once provided meaning and clarity. Left in its wake is a kind of existential numbness, not the dramatic suffering Orwell imagined, but something perhaps worse, a gentle erosion of our capacity to care deeply about anything at all. The deeper question, yet Huxley's insight reaches beyond simple technological determinism. The question isn't merely whether we're being manipulated by shadowy forces, though elements of that certainly exist. The deeper issue is whether we're witnessing the natural evolution of human desires when freed from traditional constraints. We are all, in a sense, hungry rats, dropped into an increasingly complex box, filled with an endless array of levers and rewards. The difference is that we've become both the subjects and the architects of our own experiment. We create the very technologies and systems that then shape our behavior, often in ways we don't fully understand or control. This creates a feedback loop where our desires shape our tools, which then reshape our desires, which then demand new tools, and so on. The question becomes, at what point do we lose sight of what we originally wanted the tools to accomplish? The eternal trade-offs at its heart, Huxley's work confronts us with fundamental questions that each generation must answer anew. What are we willing to sacrifice for comfort, for pleasure, for the elimination of suffering? What is the relationship between happiness and meaning, between security and freedom, between order and authenticity? These aren't abstract philosophical puzzles, they're practical decisions we make dozens of times each day. Every time we reach for our phone to avoid a moment of discomfort, every time we choose entertainment over engagement, every time we medicate an emotion rather than examine its source, we're participating in the same trade-offs that concerned Huxley. The challenge isn't to reject all pleasure or comfort, that would be neither possible nor desirable. Instead, it's to maintain awareness of what we're trading and why. It's to preserve space for the difficult, uncomfortable, meaningful experiences that John the Savage insisted were essential to a life worth living. The Island's wisdom in his final novel, Island, published just 1 year before his death, Huxley offered a different vision. A society built on conscious awareness rather than unconscious conditioning. The inhabitants of this fictional island are guided by birds that constantly call out a simple reminder: attention, attention, here and now, boys, here and now. Perhaps this is Huxley's ultimate prescription for our brave new world, not to retreat from technology or progress, but to approach both with full consciousness of their implications. To remain present to what is actually happening in our lives, rather than sleepwalking through an endless stream of distractions. The bird's call serves as a metaphor for the kind of awareness that can cut through both the noise of our information age and the comfortable numbness of our chemical solutions. It's a reminder that meaning emerges not from the elimination of difficulty, but from our conscious engagement with the full spectrum of human experience. The choice before us, Huxley's enduring relevance, lies not in the accuracy of his specific predictions, but in his recognition of the eternal human tendency to trade depth for comfort, meaning for pleasure, freedom for security. Each generation faces these trade-offs in new forms, with new technologies and new temptations. Our current moment presents us with Huxley's questions in particularly acute form. We have unprecedented access to both information and distraction, to both connection and isolation, to both empowerment and manipulation. The tools that could theoretically liberate us also have the power to enslave us, not through force, but through our own desires. The path forward requires what Huxley ultimately advocated: conscious choice, not the rejection of modernity, but the cultivation of awareness about what we're choosing and why. The recognition that struggle, uncertainty, and even suffering are not bugs in the human system to be eliminated, but features that give life its texture and meaning. In our age of infinite options and constant optimization, perhaps the most radical act is simply to pause, look up from our screens, and ask ourselves, what kind of life do we actually want to live? What are we willing to sacrifice for it? And what are we unwilling to give up, no matter how comfortable the alternative might be? The answers to these questions will determine whether we become the unconscious inhabitants of our own brave new world, or conscious creators of something more meaningful. The choice, as always, remains ours, but only if we remember that we have one.